Well, the challenges of making it have been both glorious and obviously really, really hard because whether it was when we were on the real submarine, a real submarine out in Rochester, or on the sets, there's always only so much space and so many rooms, and therefore, you know, finding new angles and just the physical proximity of allowing each other space to move around and to have moments that different scenes require is really grueling. And for me now, a month or so in, maybe more, maybe 6 weeks in, it's starting to blur because it all takes place in kind of 2, 3, 4 rooms, and trying to differentiate days has sort of gone out of the window. And then on top of that, obviously, just the physical pressures of what you're trying to bring to the camera and to the story means that there's always a level of sort of physical high intensity, and that's quite grueling. But if you ever get to a point where you're about ready to moan, you suddenly think, well, this is what I signed on for. This is a submarine movie, and that's what's sort of making it fantastic fun as well. Well, what we realised was that, and I've only found this out by trying to explain it to curious friends, when they ask, what are you making, or what does it entail, this film? And you say, oh, it's a film set on a submarine. And they say, well, is there adventure? And you say, well, of course there's adventure, it's a submarine. And is it intense? Yeah, of course it's intense. And so that's why I suddenly thought, well, in a way, the genre is in itself, the submarine is in itself a genre. Aside from the mission, aside from the adventure side of this story, that's really what the film's about. 12 men in a submarine, and how 12 egos, as you rightly put it, bounce off each other, complement each other, aggravate each other. And as I said, that was certainly the thing that stood out to me the most when I was on a real submarine. I was actually on a bigger version, obviously, and there was about 130 of us. But how they handle that is really admirable. And they put an awful lot of themselves to one side and operate as a machine. But also the piece looks at how those people out of that environment don't function, and that's another element early on in the film, that these are men who don't necessarily function away from the institutionalized sort of quality that being a submariner from an early age puts on you. I mean, I've admired his work both as a filmmaker, as a fictional filmmaker, and as a factual filmmaker, and he was so impressive in his embrace of my input, which is, it's not always necessary in the relationship between actor director, but it's incredibly encouraging when you feel that you're going in the right direction, or indeed your ideas and your opinions are being heard and embraced, and sometimes then put into the piece before you've even started filming. And I think what struck me certainly with this piece is that he has got this very flexible style in which the experience and indeed the skill he has as a documentary filmmaker can also inform and colour his fictional filmmaking, his storytelling, and this suits him to the ground. Getting wet is, it's always it always adds something the first few takes, and then when you realise you've got another 9 hours of being sprayed down or hosed down, it just does start to grate. But again, when you know what you're getting into, and this is a submarine film, and there are always going to be scenes where jets of water eventually kind of make their way in and either get fought off or succumb, then you've got to sit back and enjoy it. There's a gripping adventure story. There's also a really interesting look at a kind of class struggle. There's a really interesting dynamic being played out between these 12 men. Who will survive? It's like, 12 green bottles sitting on a wall. And one by one, each bottle falls. And, who survives, who doesn't survive. And I think also it's looking at a genre, as we said before, the submarine genre, in a new light. The last few that I certainly found were all slightly more glitzy and glamorous and looking at the sort of high-tech end. And this one goes back, I think, more to the kind of grittier, dirtier films, certainly black and white submarine films.